Hi, I'm Kathy Callahan Brady, and welcome. I'm here today with Vaughn Thurman, and welcome, and thank you so much for coming. I so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This is exciting. Actually, this is our first one, and so you are the true entrepreneur of being a guinea pig on our show. So there's two reasons why I asked you here today. One of them is because I just wanted to thank you for volunteering your time. You've been one of the greatest advocates for FTSE and one of my biggest champions, so I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. The other reason is we want to advertise what you're doing, because what you're doing is absolutely amazing here in Frederick. Then the other reason, so here's sort of up my sleeve, all of the CEOs at FTSE, each one of them, they want to know you. They want to know who the entrepreneur is, who's advising them. And so you spend a lot of time advising our companies. They're all very appreciative. But who's Vaughn Thurman? You know, you're this overnight success, right? We always say that. And so we want to get a little bit more in terms of who this man is. So tell me first your business and what you're doing here in Frederick and kind of why.
Okay. Well, so a handful of businesses. That should be a really easy answer, but it's gotten a little bit more complicated over the years. I started out a company about 20 years ago here called Swift Systems, which is a managed services provider that's grown to provide managed IT services, or kind of like fixed price, monthly recurring, kind of IT programmatic services to mid-sized businesses in the DC and Baltimore metro. And Frederick is our root. We've expanded out into Columbia and Rockville with additional facilities down there, and we're kind of a 50-mile radius. And so what we do in that business, and that's really the root, is we're kind of like an outsourced IT department, a fractional IT department for companies that are maybe large enough to build an IT department but want to be more cost-effective and efficient, or some of the smaller companies that aren't ready for that but need to be able to compete with the larger companies and have good advice, good services, good people in there. We built an application about 15 years ago that was actually to help us run that business. And by the time this comes out, this will be old news, but we've rebranded this product that for 15 years ran under the banner JobTrack as High Gear. And we're relaunching it under highgear.com and a new tagline of the only way to workflow. And that product has customers around the world, financial services firms, large government agencies, hedge funds, insurance companies, energy giants, that use it to run complex business processes. And what makes us special is not what we can do, but who can do it. We've targeted, as an entrepreneur, I always wanted changes to the application that we were running internally. And I made my programmers build an interface that allowed me to make those changes without writing code, to design forms and workflows and reports that allowed us to run business processes in a standardized way. And so we ended up realizing a few years into it that we had a product there, and in fact that product was about as interesting as everything else we were doing. So that's now grown much larger and faster than the original company. And so a few years ago we created Step 3, so Swift Systems, High Gear, and Step 3 is our new holding company. Doesn't really even have a website yet, may never have one. It's really just the investment vehicle. We moved all of our shareholders into Step 3, and we've also used that company to begin making some investments in some other local Frederick businesses that we see as promising startups, especially in the tech field where we kind of know it best.
Yeah, entrepreneur constantly innovating and staying where you are is never good enough. So I love that. So why? What inspired you to actually do this?
Yeah, I was an entrepreneur from the time I was a kid. Literally, I've got stories at 15 years old of using a fake ID and a friend and I buying floor worth of hotel furniture from a hotel that was going to be torn down and selling it to motels around the area that needed furniture upgrades. And I got the passion right at that time. It's a complicated story and it sounds illegal and probably halfway was, but we pulled it all off and everybody was happy. But as I continued on, I ran a small contracting business. That's how I paid my way through school. I went off into the Air Force and kind of got my background in technology and electrical engineering at that point. And that migrated me over into the computer field. But during that same journey, I vacationed around this area a few times and just absolutely fell in love with it. I think Frederick is it should be the apple of everyone's eye, and if it isn't, it's because they haven't seen it yet. We have everything from great quality of life to a great and open business community to great technology companies here, and just a wonderful quality of life for family. And so I wanted to start another business. I wanted it to be in the tech field, and I wanted it to be in Frederick. And so we moved here. I began to study the area and became convinced with that first managed services company that the area was growing very quickly, that there were a lot of businesses here that needed those enterprise-grade information technology services, but that there weren't necessarily at that point enough providers to meet the market demand. So it was really just see a need and fill a need. So it was a combination of the fact that, again, I worked really hard. My wife will attest. If I had a job that was a 40-hour-a-week job, I probably worked 70 to 80 hours just because I couldn't stand for everything not to be the way I wanted it. And I kind of got to the point, again, as I really grew in the tech field, that I wanted the benefit of all that extra work that I was doing to accrue to my own future, benefit. But, I think it's more than that, though. It really was a passion, a love for the community. I wanted to see the fruit of my labors benefit this extraordinary community. I felt like I had something to offer. And I got humbled along the way and learned that this community had a lot more to offer me than I had to offer it. And I think that I've become a better businessman by being here and doing, you learn by trial and error and jump in.
Yeah, I so get that. I mean, I've only been here 2 years now, and it feels like it's home. And doing business here is so much easier and so much more enjoyable, although it's still difficult. And so that's kind of my next question. So we just left Strategic Growth and Advisory Board, and you're on the emerging team. So that's our customers and our clients that are beyond that startup phase, and they've got their first client, they've got their first employee, and so life is sweet at that particular time, right? And of course, I'm being a little facetious there. But we just left that. You've wowed them. They want to know, and I know they do, because you make it look easy in terms of what you do. Overnight success. Tell us a little bit in terms of the struggles behind all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely no overnight success. I joke with people all the time, this was an overnight success. It took 15 to 20 years of failures to get to. Again, I got into this pretty confident. I had run some small businesses and even sold some as a young guy. I was pretty confident that with the way the tech field was growing, started that out in the basement in '98, went and got real office space in 2001. That was a time that, if you put .com on the end of anything, I mean, I remember toothbrush.com getting $4 million of investment, and they didn't have anything but a business model on paper. And, so it was an exciting time, and there were a lot of reasons to believe that the world was your oyster. And that confidence that I had in myself and the confidence I had in the marketplace got me in trouble. Now, we did grow like crazy. The Swift Systems business grew by 50% a year from 2001 to 2006. We were getting larger and larger customers. We were beginning to get established in the community. And it caused me to have too much confidence. I took on debt. I took on a larger office. I hired upgrades in terms of sales and business development team, and made a lot of decisions that were probably good decisions across time, but they were premature. They were before their time. And so the challenge was that by the time we came into 2007, I had bled out most of our resources right as the market was beginning to turn. And I'd bled those resources out because I was brave and I didn't mind getting down to the wire because I was trying to grow the business. But as things began to change, and one of our largest customers in that services business was a very large regional real estate practice, and they began to shrink. And we had another customer that got acquired right around the same time, and their key management came in and said, "We love you guys. You've done a great job. In fact, you did so well for us. You actually helped us get acquired at a great price. But the new company has their own IT team, and they want the keys and for you guys to leave today." Long story short, two clients represented 60% of our business, and both of their models changed to where they didn't need us within 60 days of each other. And so the next 5 years, we tried to survive the economic downturn that people were feeling from 2007 to kind of 2012. We should have recovered sooner, but we had no resources. And so I think, I don't think you're really an entrepreneur until you stared at the ceiling, knowing payroll is tomorrow, that your checking account is in the negative, that you're praying, "Dear God, let that payment that I'm not expecting for 3 weeks come in tomorrow morning so I can rush it to the bank and not have to tell everybody how bad this really is." until you're counting the cracks in the ceiling trying to get to sleep, I don't think you're an entrepreneur. And I think, and it's not to say that having a dream and a vision doesn't make you an entrepreneur. I'm saying what makes you seasoned, what makes you able to give somebody advice, not from the perspective of you're an idiot and I'm smart, but no, I've been there. I've walked that cliff that you're standing on the edge of, and I don't want to see you fall. You've got to have been through some of those things. And I think the truth is it made me a wiser businessman. It made me a more careful businessman. And it didn't mean that I lost my courage. It meant that I had to learn how to measure that courage against the realities of the constraints of the marketplace, the risks that were, excuse me, the risks that were out there. But it was, it was trying. It was trying for family. There were times that I couldn't take a paycheck multiple times in a row. There were times that I had to figure out how to take less pay for a long time. Our house fell into disrepair. We started going down to minimum payment mode on all kinds of things. And I had to start to make some humble calls to vendors with the business and say, I know we're 90 or 120 days behind, but I need you to go a little further with me. And I think a lot of young entrepreneurs, a lot of folks that start, and they might be 60 years old when they start their business, but I mean they're in their first couple of years. I think a lot of them are afraid to share with people how difficult it gets, or that the $50,000 they started out with, they thought that was a ton of money, ran out in 4 months, and it isn't going the way they think. That actually it's the opposite of what's intuitive. The sooner you share with people around you the difficulty of your situation, the sooner people will help you, and they're compelled to help you. The thing they're usually looking for, and I think that I learned out of all this, was humility, right? If you're proud and you're too proud to admit you're struggling, especially if people can see it, it's very difficult to work with you. But as soon as you're humble enough to say, I think this idea should be working, but I can't figure it out, that's when people say, great, we're in the same boat, because I'm not sure I can figure it out either, but let me ask you some questions. And I think that's kind of what I gained out of that. And the truth is, I may be mentoring or helping people, but I'm only able to do that because I got to the point where I was able to seek out mentors and people who could help me and come before them humbly. And whether it's been my faith in God, whether it's been some great friends, whether it's been some people who are seasoned in business that I had to seek out humbly and say, you don't know me, you have no reason to take lunch with me, but would you please, for the love of God, go to lunch with me? Just, give me a half an hour of your wisdom, because I'm in deep kimchi and I need to get out of it. Like I said, that draws people in, and I think that's really what changed me from being an entrepreneur to a business person.
I don't even know what to ask at that point. But one of my last questions is, what do you want to leave? With everything that you've said, I'm sitting here checking off the box of, he's probably going to tell him this, he's probably going to tell him this. So the last thing, if you're going to leave, and let's say a startup, not somebody who is established, but a startup, they're just getting started. If there's just one thing that you could tell them, you've got to make sure you do this or you don't do that, what would it be?
Oh gosh, you got to try to get me down to one. That's the hard part, right? So let me do a few, and then maybe I'll ask you which one you think was the most useful. It's going to be harder than you think. Do it anyway. No matter what you know, you're going to learn more very quickly by virtue of doing it. It is trial and error. Don't be afraid to fail. Fail fast. Admit failure. Ask for help. Ask for help early and often. Don't lose your sense of humor. Don't think too much of yourself. There's a lot of better people who've tried business than me and failed. It isn't about being the smartest person. It isn't about being the greatest speaker. It isn't about any of the things that we typically think. It's often just about grit and just saying, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to believe in this. And it's adaptability. If you have a great idea, it's probably not going to work out the way you think. But if it's going to work out as anywhere near as big as you think, it's going to work out by getting people to help you. So I think I figured it out myself. It's going to be hard. Don't be afraid to do it. The key to success, I think, is really humility. Surprise people, disarm people with humility. Prospects, when you say, you know what, I kind of need your order. They don't know what to do then. When you try to pretend you don't need their order and they can tell you can, they're nervous about you. But when you say, I really need your business, then it endears people. So approach success humbly, approach failure humbly, approach new ideas humbly, and I think that's the secret to engaging people who can help you.
I think that's the greatest piece of advice ever. Thank you. Such great advice. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And thank you so much for coming on the show. I
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
It's easy to be a champion for FTSE. I think you guys are doing great work, and you're a huge asset to our community, so thank you.
I appreciate that, but it's because of the community and you. Thank you so much for coming. We so appreciate it. We've got 36 other advisors that we're going to be interviewing, and then we'll swing back around and go a little bit more in depth. So you'll find us on fitzy.org or our YouTube channel at FITCI, F-I-T-C-I. Thanks.